Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Let's continue our Packer potential prospect series as we get set for the draft coming up next week. We're going to wrap up this series coming up this at the end of this week. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up this week as we close out this week and get ready for the draft next week and such. So I want to take a look at three different positions for our latest one. We're going to look at a linebacker. We haven't talked about linebacker, and usually when you talk about linebacker, or usually when we talk about the Packers and some priorities and some needs, you haven't heard linebacker. But I'm going to kind of make a case. I'm going to try to play both sides of this, and then you decide. But we're going to talk a little bit about perhaps the top inside linebacker in this draft, and that's Carson Schwesinger from UCLA. So we're going to throw his name in there. I'm going to throw in James Pearce Jr., edge rusher from Tennessee, and Josh Simmons. Let's start with Josh Simmons, since he recently took a top 30 visit to Green Bay. Ohio State first started off at San Diego State, but wrapped up his collegiate career with Ohio State. And he's got experience playing right tackle and left tackle, but a lot of draft peeps out there feel like he is a true, legit, just natural left tackle. But he's coming off of a knee injury. So last year he started the first 6 games for Ohio State, missed the final 10 because of a torn patellar tendon in his left knee. Daniel Jeremiah, NFL.com's Daniel Jeremiah, has this to say about Josh Simmons. Simmons is a gifted left tackle prospect. He was having an outstanding 2024 campaign before suffering a season-ending knee injury in October. Excellent size, movement, skills, and balance. In the passing game, he has a smooth, fluid set. He can easily redirect and plays with a wide, firm base. He uses a sharp punch before steering and controlling defenders. He will overset on occasion, but he's nimble enough to redirect and recover. In the run game, he plays under control, stays on his feet, and maintains leverage and position. He can adjust in space on combos. The main question is his health. What he put on tape this fall should generate plenty of optimism about his chances of becoming a quality starting left tackle in the NFL. So, again, when we talk about these offensive linemen when it comes to Green Bay, now Simmons is a tackle. He doesn't have the experience playing inside and such. He started San Diego. He was at right tackle. San Diego State was over at right tackle, but then flourished as a left tackle for the Buckeyes. So the thing when we talk about offensive line, if it is, I think the main question when it comes to this for Green Bay, it boils down to their left tackle, I think, quite a bit, because you hear Matt LaFleur and you hear Goody this offseason say Walker and Morgan are essentially going to battle for the left tackle position. Now, last year there were some questions about Jordan Morgan through the draft process, even though he played left tackle, but is he better suited to play interior offensive line at the NFL? And for the most part, during his practice with Green Bay and OTAs last year in preseason, he was getting reps at right guard. He was playing in the interior. So if that's still the case, where they view him as a better option for guard, then do they look at the draft for maybe getting their starting left tackle of the future, or bringing in another left tackle to compete with Rasheed Walker, because Rasheed Walker is entering his final year of his contract. And you look at this offensive line, and this is why I think a lot of people too, draft people or anybody else out there, are mentioning offensive line quite a bit for Green Bay, either for a day 1 or a day 2 pick, is because the uncertainty after this season. Now, I feel like Green Bay is going to lock up Zach Tom. I feel like that's going to be the case. But Zach Tom's going to also cost a pretty penny. They spent a lot on Aaron Banks this offseason. They've got Elton Jenkins making a boatload of cash. So if they lock up Zach Tom, I don't think they lock up Rasheed Walker. I think they let him go. Then you're going to have to fill that void. So are they going to be comfortable with Jordan Morgan playing that left tackle? Or do they view him as a better interior because Sean Ryan's also going to be a free agent? So is he the replacement for Sean Ryan? And then you're left with, who's our left tackle? Maybe it's coming in this draft. Maybe it's a guy like Josh Simmons or any of the other tackles that we have mentioned already in our potential prospect series. That, to me, is going to be an interesting thing to follow in this draft, is how early does Green Bay look at offensive linemen, because I feel like then that they're preparing a little bit more for next year. Not to say that they won't play this year, because obviously we saw what depth could do and how it affects Green Bay and such. But that to me is like the biggest question, is the uncertainty surrounding this offensive line for the future. Again, I feel like Zach Tom's they're going to lock him up, but he's going to cost a lot. Aaron Banks' contract's structured in a way where they could kind of get out of it a little bit earlier. Elton Jenkins is still there, but eventually they're probably going to have 3 offensive linemen that are making quite a bit. And one of those spots is not your left tackle. And usually left tackle is the guy that gets you the most money. So could they invest a first-round pick in a guy that they view is going to be maybe their long-term left tackle, but they're going to try to get by cheaper with that dude? I could see that as a possibility, 100%. And that could be a guy like Josh Simmons. The biggest question is going to be, does he pass the medicals? And I do think it's of note that Green Bay did bring him in for a top 30 visit. They haven't brought in a ton of offensive linemen for a top 30 visit, but he was one of them. And a lot of it's probably going to see, all right, check in on the knee. How is the knee looking? I wouldn't be surprised at all if Josh Simmons is Green Bay's pick to get that fixture at left tackle for the foreseeable future for the next few years. And if they do have a little concern on the knee, or maybe they just kind of want to ease him on in, well, they're covered with Walker for this year. And then Simmons comes in as maybe a swing tackle for his rookie year. Green Bay's done that before, where they've drafted an offensive lineman in the first round. Morgan maybe was going to be that guy this year until he got hurt. Brian Bulaga was that guy until Tauscher got hurt. Then they inserted the rookie, and then they won a Super Bowl. Derek Sherrod was kind of the same thing before he suffered a gruesome, essentially a career-ending injury. But when they drafted him, he was going to be the replacement for Chad Clifton. So, I mean, this would fit something that Green Bay has done over the years. Drafting an offensive lineman, kind of being a swing tackle or a backup until the next year, and they're going to be the next starter. Staying in the trenches, but moving to the other side, because obviously we have talked a lot about edge rushers and defensive linemen and such. And the next one that I want to talk about is James Pearce from Tennessee. Now, this one to me, I don't know. I'll just say it right off the bat. I don't know if this is a great fit for Green Bay. And a lot of it boils down to, is he big enough to play in this defense? He's 6'5", 245. He's got the height, but does he have the weight to play a defensive end in a 4-3 defense at the NFL level? Here's what Daniel Jeremiah had to say. Pearce is a long, lean edge rusher. Volunteers moved him around in their scheme, and he created havoc from a variety of entry points. His first 3 steps are very explosive when he's rushing off the edge. For such a lean-framed player, he can generate a lot of pocket push with his bull rush. When he's used as a walk-around blitzer, he exposes the lack of athleticism along the interior of the offensive line. They clear the runway for him, and he goes to work. His pressure rate stands out among his peers in his class. Against the run, he plays bigger than his weight would suggest. He sets the firm edge, especially against tight ends. Overall, Pearce has double-digit sack potential and should make an immediate impact in the league. All sounds great, right? All sounds great. But is he suited as a 4-3 defensive end, or is he suited better for a 3-4 outside linebacker edge rusher? That to me is the biggest question here. Got the numbers. Last year, all SEC first team, 13 tackles for losses, 7.5 sacks. 2023 was a first team all SEC, 14.5 tackles for loss. Tackles for loss, 10 sacks. Now, in 2023, he was arrested in December for disobeying orders from police after being stopped for speeding and driving on a suspended license. Charges were eventually dropped after he showed proof he successfully obtained a driver's license and did pay court costs for the speeding ticket. Numbers are there. Production is there. But the numbers that worry me a little bit is, again, the weight. He's got the height. But maybe he can add the weight, but is it going to happen this year? Probably not. But that's my concern with James Pearce Jr. is he big enough to play that 4-3 defensive end for Green Bay? I mean, speed's there, 4.47. He production score at the combine for defensive ends and edge ranks was 4th. Total score was 4th. I mean, so he's got some good numbers in that, but I get a little worried about the size, and you kind of wonder, is he going to be, at least in the early parts of his career, is he going to be just a situational pass rusher? Is he just going to be that guy you throw out there on obvious passing downs? And you just say, tee off, go get the quarterback. Third downs or again, those obvious passing situations. Because he is a little bit leaner. That to me is going to be kind of the thing to follow. And honestly, I was trying to think of a comp, and maybe this might be the comp. And it's not when you look at his production, I mean, he was pretty good. And he was a 4-3 for the most part of his career. KBG or KGB. Kabir Baja Biamila. Because I was looking it up earlier, I'm like, okay, just random. That was like one of the names that popped in my head. Kabir was 6'4", about 240, between 245, 250. Dude racked up some sacks too. He was an obvious, situational pass rusher, but he was racking up sacks for Green Bay, right? So now you got a guy who's an inch taller and about the same weight. So maybe there's that role. But again, it's going to be, are you okay with investing a first-round pick for a guy who maybe isn't initially going to play every down, all 3 downs? Because there is still other scouts out there, other draft reports out there do question a little bit about his run defense. Okay, he could go up against the tight ends. But what about those massive left tackles and right tackles? So that one's going to be interesting to me. Like if Green Bay does draft him, is he initially just going to be that specialist until they can kind of get him in the weight room and mold him maybe a little bit more? And then kind of the wild card pick here is a linebacker, straight up linebacker, middle linebacker from UCLA, Carson Schwesinger. You look at his physical traits, about 6'2", 245 pounds. I mean, you watch some of his film. I was watching some of it last night. Playing in that inside linebacker role, blitzing up the middle and such, or getting those tackles at the line of scrimmage. And it's like, okay, you're not hearing. Now, if you're playing around with like mock draft simulators, a lot of them will give you team needs to try to help you draft what to get. And if you pay attention to those, a lot of them will say linebacker's a need for Green Bay. Okay. Now, is it a need for an early pick? Well, first off, let's look at some of the other stuff for Carson. Last year, first team AP All-American, first team All-Big Ten, finalist for the Butkus Award, nation's top linebacker, led FBS with 90 solo tackles, ranked third with 136, was a team captain, 8.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions, 3 pass breakups. Daniel Jeremiah has this to say about Carson here, and perhaps maybe the first or one of the first linebackers, middle linebackers, inside linebackers taken in this draft. Carson is an ultra-instinctive linebacker with range and coverability. Against the run, he is quick to key, diagnose. He is adept at beating blockers to spots, dipping underneath, and avoiding them with quickness. He struggles to free himself when he's forced to engage blocks. He has outstanding lateral range, and while he lacks thump, he's a reliable tackler. He is smooth and fluid in coverage and has the agility to mirror match tight ends and running backs. I love his play speed and energy. He chases plays all over the field. Overall, Carson isn't the most imposing figure, but he's going to rack up production because of his blend of speed and instincts. So, okay. Edgerrin Cooper, we know him. Okay, we're good there. There's still some questions about Quay Walker, and we know Goody said that they want to lock up Quay Walker. And I understand that from the perspective of, like, instead of giving him a fifth-year option, we'd like to maybe work out a deal with him. I don't know how long. Can they get away with a couple years? Will it be a long-term deal? I don't know. But we haven't really heard any movement from that other than shortly after the season ended. But as of right now, Quay Walker, they got to decide about a fifth-year option or try to figure out a deal for him. But there's still maybe some question marks. More so if you ask fans, because it sure seems like the Packers and his teammates are incredibly high on him. I mean, Xavier McKinney has multiple times said that Quay Walker can be the best linebacker in football. So, okay, Quay and Cooper are there. They re-signed Isaiah McDuffie for a couple years. So on the face of it seems like they don't have a need for linebacker. On the other hand, you bring in Carson, then maybe you have your true middle linebacker, your true inside linebacker, that allows you to put Quay, weak side, strong side, Cooper, weak side, strong side. You let those two athletic guys get out in space, get after the quarterback, and then you kind of have your more of a true middle linebacker. Then possibly you have the makings of a 4-3 defense with 3 really good linebackers. Now, the other part in this thing is, remember, a lot of defenses now, nickel, so you're taking away a linebacker. Well, who's that linebacker going to be? Is it going to be Carson? Is it going to be Edgerrin Cooper? Is it going to be, Quay Walker and that? But I still feel like Quay Walker should not be playing middle linebacker. I feel like he is better suited maybe for weak side. I don't know if Green Bay is eventually going to move him there. And, with McDuffie coming aboard, there's still some questions up there. But if they were, I'm going to try to make a case here for Carson. If they draft a guy like Carson, I understand it wouldn't be the biggest need right away. And that's where it's going to upset a lot of fans. But then I'm starting to think, I'm like, okay, now you've got 3 speedy linebackers, 3 athletic linebackers here that can cover a lot. We know Quay's got speed. Cooper's got speed. Carson's got the ability to match up against tight ends and running backs coming out of the backfield. You put him in that middle, and if you watch some of his film where he's blitzing up the middle and having success with that, it's hard not to get excited about the potential of those 3 manning that linebacker spot for the next few years. It's really hard not to. Just going to say that. And I think when you look at the depth right now at linebacker for Green Bay, it's a little thin. And that's why, if you look at the draft needs for Green Bay, you're going to see a lot of people say they need linebacker because the depth isn't quite there. Now, on the other hand, is it the biggest need? Probably not, because you're hoping that Edgerrin Cooper, after a very successful rookie season, takes up another step. You're hoping that Quay Walker continues to ascend. The biggest thing with him, though, has been inconsistency. You did re-sign Isaiah McDuffie. You drafted Hopper last year in the 3rd round. I mean, that's a fairly high pick that maybe you want to get a little bit more production out of for this year. So is it the biggest need early on in the draft? Probably not. And that would be the case maybe to not draft Carson day one, early day two. Because is it the biggest one? No. But it's fun to think about the potential of him and Cooper and Walker out there, and kind of gives you flashbacks of some of those great 4-3 linebacking groups of the day. That's what you ultimately hope for, but that's also asking a lot. So, essentially, would it surprise me if Green Bay drafted Carson? It wouldn't surprise me. I think it would surprise a lot of Packers fans that maybe don't know a lot about him, or maybe really haven't thought of like, okay, let's try to take a step back and think, why did they do this? Okay, typical middle linebacker, depth-wise, kind of just covering bases in case it doesn't work out with Quay and or this, that, the other thing too. So it wouldn't surprise me if they do it. The only thing that would surprise me is if they actually do it, if that makes sense. But I do think it would get met with maybe some anger, maybe some disappointments, or some frustration from some Packers fans out there.